She's gone where no woman in Scotland ever has, till now that is. Recently, a news piece came in that had us beaming. It was the appointment of the first female president of Cricket Scotland. On Beyond the Boundary today, it's my pleasure to have Sue Strachan. How are you, Sue? Welcome to the show. How are you? I hope friends and family are safe in these times.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be part of the show. Friends and family are all safe, and safety is really important in these times. So yes, I'm happy and I'm in a good place.
The first female to be the president of Cricket Scotland and that too in 140 years. Has the feeling sunk in yet?
Yeah, well, I had a year as president-elect to get used to the idea, but still, last week when I became president, it was a surprisingly emotional day for me. It's a huge honour, and it was a huge honour to be elected and then to be voted for by the clubs and the associations, and to have them place their confidence in me. So not only is it a huge honour, I've always wanted to be the first woman to do something, so this is my thing, but also a huge responsibility, because I am a hands-on sort of person, and I want to be sure that my 2 years as president is remembered for the work that I do. Yes, for the fact that I'm the first woman, but more for the work that I do while I'm here in post. So I've got a couple of years to make a difference. And they say that you should always try and leave an organisation better than it was when you came to it. And I won't be leaving at the end of my 2 years, but I feel that this is my opportunity to try and make things better and make a difference.
So were you always inclined to be in the administration part of things?
Well, I've always been somebody who ended up on committees volunteering for this and volunteering for that. I like to get involved. I have lots of ideas about how things could be better. And the only way, I blame my father, because he said to me, never moan about anything unless you're prepared to get in there and change it. So that's why I end up in these situations. I used to be chairman of a girls and women's football club for some time, and then I was part of the board of the Scottish Women's Football Association for a couple of years, and it was only after that that I got involved in cricket, but basically in my club committee, and then helping to get a team together, and then working from there with the other new women's teams in Scotland, and then being voted by them onto the board of the Cricket Scotland Holdings Limited to represent the clubs that had girls and women's teams. So I've been on that board for 4 years now, and I hope I've been part of the changes that I've seen, which have been really good.
Did you ever aspire to be a full-time cricketer though?
No, I didn't. When I was young, girls weren't allowed to play cricket. So there were a couple of schools in Scotland where girls could play cricket, but they were boarding schools or schools on the other side of the country. And so I played lots of other sports. My brother played cricket, my father played cricket, but it was just never something I was able to do. My parents would have let me, but there just was nowhere to go for me to play. And so I progressed my dreams in other sports instead. I do wish that I could have played cricket as a youngster, because it's a sport that suits me very well and that I love to play. But instead, I would be listening to the Ashes series in Australia down under with my little transistor radio at midnight when I was meant to be sleeping, and listening to the progress of the England team, and never aspiring, because I never thought it would be possible for me to play. So to come to play in my 50s has been great. I'm loving it. But yes, I would have liked to have been able to play when I was younger. But if I can be part of supporting the young players nowadays coming through and help them to follow their dreams, help them to follow what we now have, which is a really strong performance pathway to become professional cricketers. If that's what they want to do, then great. You know, I want to be a part of that.
You mentioned your role is a two-year role. So what are the immediate goals that you've identified? And another thing that I'd like to know is will women's cricket be your main focus?
No, I am very much, yes, I am female. And so, and I also travel as the women's national team manager in a separate role. So I will always be an advocate for women's cricket, but actually I'm an advocate for cricket for all. And I really want to progress our equality and inclusion and diversity agenda in Cricket Scotland. I want everybody, no matter their age, so youngsters all the way up to people in their 70s and 80s, if they want to play a form of cricket, I want them to be able to do that. I want people to feel that there is no racism, there's no place for racism in cricket in Scotland, certainly. And I want to make sure that there is no sexism in cricket in Scotland. And if they don't want to play, maybe they might get involved in a club doing administration or learn to be a scorer or an umpire. And that's really where my vision is. At the same time, I am really keen that we progress our aims with our international teams as well. You know, we are one of the best performing associate nations. We have men's and women's teams both ranked in the top 15 in the ICC rankings. And we are close to fulfilling all the criteria to become a full member of the ICC. I would love to see us fulfill those criteria during my time, or even my time be part of that journey to doing that. Because as an associate nation, it's quite difficult to get enough international cricket, particularly for the women's team, to make it a viable thing to do professionally. So there's quite a lot of things in there. Sorry. I'll be a busy girl.
Right. But one of the things that we've seen with countries or teams like Scotland, Netherlands, Ireland is the exodus of players. There are players who go to England to play or turn up for Australia, like we saw in case of Ireland. Kim Garth saw a better opportunity with Australia, so she shifted to Victoria. So are there any plans in place for Cricket Scotland to, retain talent and just prohibit or at least prevent these talents from going out?
Yes, well, one of the next steps for us would be to be able to provide some professional contracts for some players to retain them as Scotland players. But that needs funding, obviously. And because we're funded by Sports Scotland and by the ICC, we're hugely grateful for the funding that we get. But there's a lot to do with that funding. We have so many things that we want to do with it, and it's difficult to fund women to play professional cricket, particularly as the ICC tend to fund on the performance of your men's team. And so, no matter how you look at it, you have to maintain the performance of your men's team first and foremost, because your funding depends on that. And so that makes it really difficult for us as an organisation to find enough money to fund our female players as well. And I know that the boards are very keen that we try and do that whenever we possibly can, but we just haven't been able to do it financially yet. We now have much better performance pathways, and we now have strengthening teams and squads. And so the next step for us is definitely to provide professional contracts for our players, so that at the moment you can't blame them for wanting to follow those dreams to be professional cricketers, and they can't do it in Scotland alone. It will be a great day when we can do that. And I hope it's not too far in the distance. But obviously COVID has come, and it has just caused such upheaval for everybody that we just don't know what situation we'll be looking at next year. We have a couple of players who were signed up for the 100, but it didn't happen this year. And we have 2 players, our captain and vice captain, Catherine and Sarah Bryce, with their professional retainer contracts, playing for Lightning Cricket at the moment, and playing very well for Lightning Cricket. So they will at least gain from that, but continue to be able to play for Scotland at the same time. But yes, it's a really, really difficult conundrum that we're left in.
Yeah, interesting. You yourself mentioned about the Bryce sisters, because I was going to ask, them being given retainer contracts, does this worry you in any way?
If I was England and Wales Cricket Board, I would want them to play for me. Yes. They so far are fiercely Scottish and will continue to play for Scotland. I hope that we can keep them, because they are not only fabulous cricketers, they're young too. They've got, they're continuing to develop, but they are also incredible role models for young women in Scotland. They are lovely girls. They're both smart girls. They're at university studying, but they're just really nice girls to speak to. And, I think our whole team, in fact, are fabulous role models. And if they can get a little bit of coverage from media somewhere, then all the better, because then youngsters in Scotland, young girls in Scotland might think, oh, I could be Sarah Bryce. Maybe I could be like her. And you have to see somebody that you identify with in order to aim for something. And these girls are definitely great role models. So I hope we can keep them. And we'll just have to do our best to do so.
Yes, and like you are the first woman in 140 years to be elected to as the president of Cricket Scotland. Claire Connor is also the president-elect, the first for an MCC, for MCC. So what is it like being a woman in sport right now? Good time?
Yes. I think you have to seize the opportunity. I think women's sport is potentially just on the cusp of greatness and of becoming as well covered, I would hope, as men's sport. If you look at women's sport, then in some sports the prize money is equal. So squash, my main sport, the prize money is equal. They play the tournaments with the men's and women's tournaments played together. And actually, for a spectator, probably the women's game is more entertaining to watch. And I think similarly with cricket, if you understand the fact that our physiology is different, we are not as strong and we are not as fast, but we have to make up for that with guile and agility and quickness of thought. And if you appreciate that within a game, then the women's game often becomes more interesting than the men's game. It's not just a slugfest, it has nuance, and it has people really thinking about field placement and thinking about shot selection. So I think women's cricket, and I think they showed that in the World Cup in Australia last year, 86,000 in the MCG to watch the women's final. In fact, that was this year, wasn't it? The 8th of March this year, International Women's Day. What an amazing event that was. And the whole of that World Cup was just incredible. And hopefully we don't lose that momentum. The worry is that through the coronavirus pandemic, that we lose the momentum that we have built up over the last few years. But I think there are too many very determined people to lose that momentum.
Right. So actually, I maintain this, that the women's cricket is sort of at a stage where it's sort of getting to a full bloom stage. So that's when there are exciting things coming up. So, but
yes.
Sue, thanks a lot for your time, and I wish you as well as Cricket Scotland all the best from me as well as Women's Cricket Zone. Thanks for
Thank you.
Being on Beyond the Boundary.
Thank you very much for having me, and I wish you all well out there as well. We'll be following you. We hope you'll be following us too.
Sure, we will. Thank you.
Thank you very much.